I'd like to call to order the April 21st, 2025 regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. If everyone who's able could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone joining us this evening, and both in person and remotely. The board held an executive session on April 15th regarding safety, as well as prior to this meeting. Board members take a deep breath. With an agenda before you, are there any changes? All right. Then I'd like to call on the board secretary to conduct a roll call of board members.
Dr. Bader?
Here.
Dr. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Brandt? Here. Dr. Buck?
Here.
Dr. Kravacore?
Here.
Dr. Dino? Here. Ms. Huff?
Here.
Mr. Colby?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Here.
Thank you. While I mentioned it at our first meeting of the month, I felt it's worth mentioning today that, again, April is Autism Acceptance Month. I'd like to acknowledge all of our employees and staff that work with students on the spectrum. We know these students are valued members of our community. Next up, we're going to move to communications, and I invite Mr. Johnson to share his superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. As we start a new week, I would like to provide the community with a recap and update regarding the current state-high security situation. After police thwarted a credible threat against the school with an arrest on Friday, April 11th, we increased security as an extra precaution at the high school in Delta for the following Monday morning. Additional police officers joined our school resource officers and security staff, and we used portable metal detectors at the high school's main entrances and handheld detectors at Delta. We also searched bags and backpacks. Students helped tremendously by being patient and cooperative, and many faculty, staff, and administrators pitched in to assist the effort. On the first day, there were long lines and delays of more than an hour. So to expedite matters, we borrowed 3 additional metal detectors from Penn State. This significantly sped up the arrival process, though we were still unable to get everyone in before 8:40 a.m. start. Police continually assured us throughout the week that they did not have evidence of a remaining active threat against any of our schools. For that reason, schools remained open for our students and staff members. On Thursday, we provided our community with a Q&A that has all the information that we can share at this point. This morning's arrival at State High in Delta went smoothly. Because law enforcement continues to inform us that they have no evidence of an active threat against our schools, we will return to our normal arrival protocols tomorrow without metal detectors. This will include our security staff checking IDs of anyone entering the high school and Delta buildings, as well as a visible presence of our administrators and the high school SRO. To help with this transition, additional police will be present on campus during our arrival tomorrow. Moving forward, as an initial action, we are asking the board to approve the purchase of 3 portable metal detectors at tonight's meeting to replace the ones borrowed from Penn State. This is important to increase our flexibility throughout the district should we need to utilize metal detectors in the future. Since our customary practice is to do a district-wide debrief after every school security incident, safety and security staff and our SRO will meet with administrators and a board representative this week to reflect on our response and discuss our next steps regarding security measures. Topics will include student IDs and the future use of our portable metal detectors, among other things. Following this meeting, we will inform the board and the community of any recommended changes to our safety and security protocols. I want to reiterate that the threat was averted because a concerned individual stepped forward to share information, underscoring the importance of see something, say something practice. This kind of communication, our close ties with local police and the other proactive measures continue to be the most effective deterrents. In closing, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to our local police for their efforts in keeping us safe, and to our dedicated administrators, students, and staff for showing such courage and resilience during a difficult time. I am especially grateful to our parents for entrusting us with their children. Your trust means the world to us. Witnessing so many people come together with strength, compassion, and support has made me prouder than ever to be a part of this incredible school community. That ends my remarks.
Thank you. And I also want to echo CJ's statement about our gratitude to the local police enforcement individuals. That's been a really beneficial relationship. And in fact, we are so fortunate that Chief Gardner agreed to join us this evening, and he was going to just share some additional comments with our community. Yeah, you can come up right here's probably the easiest. There's a microphone there and a camera all set up. I really appreciate your presence tonight.
While he's going to the podium, I would also like to iterate that my update will be going out to the community during this board meeting.
Is this on? Can you hear me? First of all, I'd like to thank CJ for his extraordinary leadership during this difficult time. He's done a tremendous job here. He's listened to us when we've had to have some tough conversations, and because what we all want is the safety of our school community and the kids here, because they're our most precious resource, and I want everybody to understand that. Right now, I know there are people who want assurances, and they want names and all that, and there's certain things that we just cannot give them. We're at a point in this investigation where we've arrested the main perpetrator, and that individual has a preliminary hearing not for this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, the 30th. We are still running down leads. In a lot of the names that we've gotten through anonymous tips, we've already been aware of, but we continue to ask people to continue to send those to us, and we will follow up down. Like I said the other day, no lead, no information is too small. We're going to follow up on that. I think one of the important things is I know some people have heard some names, and they want to know why these people aren't arrested and all the things like that. To make an arrest, you have to have probable cause. You know, we live in a democracy. I can't just go and pick people up off the street on innuendo or I believe something happened. We have to have probable cause, and that means there's a crime committed, and this is the person who probably did it. More importantly, when you're involving juveniles, even if we do make an arrest, we cannot release a juvenile's name. It's just the law, and it's just the way it is. So we're not trying to be intentionally cryptic or trying to withhold information. But more importantly, you know, we're trying to develop that probable cause, and we have to do it in a way that it doesn't hinder the investigation. And also, you want to be fair to people because sometimes names have come up and they're not involved, and you know, you can end up besmirching somebody's reputation, and there's probably no going back from that. So we have to tread lightly on that. Obviously, the safety of the school community is of primary concern for us. And we will continue to keep that in mind. If we learn of, and I know there was a talk of a hit list, and we have not seen any physical list. We have heard about names on a list. I can assure you that there have been several individuals and families that we have reached out to because we heard that they may have been mentioned in something like that. So we've reached out to them. It will be our practice if we hear that. We will reach out and notify families if we have that so that we can work with them and safety plan with them. So I want everybody to understand that. To date, I'll echo what CJ said. There is no credible, substantiated information of an immediate threat at any of the schools in the State College School District. I will just say this, and then I can entertain a couple of questions if I can answer them. I'm the father, my wife and I are the parents of two children that graduated from this school district in 16 and 17. And if this incident would have occurred when my children were in school, I can't give you assurances that something won't happen, but I would have been comfortable sending my kids to school, knowing what I know right now. And I don't take that lightly in saying that. So that's the best assurance I can give you right now. Can I sit here and say that nothing will ever happen? I can't give you that, but I feel about this particular incident, that's where we're at right now. And I think a lot of that was due to the leadership of CJ and board members here, teachers, staff, things like that, the security staff here. we're very fortunate to have those relationships in this community. So I appreciate all the assistance and help. We'll provide more information as it becomes available and as we are able to release it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming this evening and just sharing that reassurance. I think it's important for our school community.
And we are committed, if CJ wants, we're committed to an increased presence throughout the remainder of the school year. We will work that way as things become available. Whatever you want, we're willing to work with you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great. I think we'll leave it at that and probably move on with the agenda if there's no objections from board members. Thank you so much, Chief Gardner. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So with that, we'll move on to student representative update. Tonight marks our final meeting with Elijah Carey. Elijah, on behalf of the board, I want to sincerely thank you for your dedication and your presence at these meetings. I hope it's been meaningful and insightful, and you've been insightful. I hope a closer look at decisions that we make and how student voices shape our community was helpful for you.
Thank you. I'm
Go ahead.
very grateful for the experience. Congratulations to State High Junior Heidi Eggerer for being elected Pennsylvania District Governor of the Key Club International. She is the first State High student to do so since the Pennsylvania District's founding in 1947. There are 33 Key Club districts worldwide, and District Governor is the highest elected position in each district. Previously, Heidi served as the district's Lieutenant Governor. I would also like to congratulate State High students Callie Nicholas and Maya Toyokawa for being selected as the PennDOT Innovations Challenge winners for the nine-county District 2. The PennDOT Innovations Challenge is a statewide competition for high school students to develop creative and strategic solutions to real-world transportation challenges. This year's challenge was to help PennDOT increase awareness of seatbelt safety. Callie and Maya proposed a mobile app called Belt Buddy for tracking seatbelt usage by detecting seatbelt chimes in cars. Their plan also called for a point reward system, reminders, and the ability to share progress via social media to spur competition and inspire continued use. Regional winners next will present their solutions to the PennDOT Secretary and panel of judges to determine a statewide winner.
Thanks, Elijah. That's pretty cool. Next, we have up legislative update. Jackie, do you have any matters you want to share?
Just briefly, I wanted to update about the Federal Department of Education memo that Peter informed us all about in the last meeting, and that's just to say that the Pennsylvania Department of Education responded to this federal memo by saying, quote, "The Pennsylvania Department of Education certifies that it has and will continue to comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as required by law and by the various grant agreements and programs under which the department and its local education agencies receive federal funds." In this letter, the Department of Education of Pennsylvania further informed the Federal Department of Education that LEAs in Pennsylvania need not recertify that they are in compliance with Title VI. And so that issue has been resolved at this point for the state of Pennsylvania. In the state legislature, there is going to be a hearing in the House Education Committee on Friday, April 25th at 10 a.m. to discuss cyber charter schools and how they're funded. So that should be a pretty fun event. The federal Congress is in recess for this week, and so they will be heading back to DC next week. So now's a great time to reach out to your federal representative because they're home if you'd like to. So they're around. So I would just encourage that if you're so inclined. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Next up, we have Center Region Council of Governments Liaison Report. Gretchen or Peter, anything to share?
I have three things to communicate, and I know, Peter, you have one as well. And Aaron, I don't know if you have any. No. Okay. So, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, mine is just a feel-good moment. Mayor Naines, in his proclamation for Earth Day, included the State College Area School District and the borough's cooperation on the Regional Solar Power Purchase Agreement as part of that proclamation. And I thought, thanks.
That's nice.
Wonderful. So I have three things I wanted to communicate. One is just an update from the Parks Authority, and the authority toured Hess Field the other day, looking at some staff information about the complex and discussing what will happen in the future development of that softball field. So looks like they'll probably also be looking at the entire parks to see what's needed and where and when, and so we can get some long time planning in. So that will be in the future. And secondly, from the Climate Action Sustainability Committee meeting from the COG, which Peter attended this last committee meeting, we had a presentation of the results of the second regional greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and that is with Pam Adams, and she was working with Penn State's local climate action program for the 2024-25 cycle to receive assistance on completing greenhouse gas emissions inventory and climate action planning. Two of Peter's students came and gave us a presentation about the Center Region COG and other agency electric vehicle study and the solar opportunities for commercial buildings. And it was, they were great presentations, and we learned a lot. So thank you, Peter, and to the students. And third is another Parks Authority communication. And just today, the authority voted to come into a landowner agreement so that the Slab Cabins Stream Bank Stabilization Project will continue. The Phase 1 construction was completed between June and October 2024, and now restoration efforts for Phases 1 and 2 will be happening. We needed this landowner agreement to make it happen. The Slab Cabin Stream Bank Stabilization Project is an effort to improve watershed health and support the Environmental Protection Agency's Chesapeake Bay restoration goals. This project is designed to enhance habitat, protect stream banks, and reconnect Slab Cabin Run to the floodplain, ultimately aiming to reduce erosion by an estimated 422 tons of sediment per year. And of course, our SCASD students take field trips to the marsh every year, so this is a direct interest of the students and the learning, and these are good things that are happening. So thanks.
Thanks, Gretchen. So that brings us to public comment. Due to the interest in tonight's meeting, we're going to request each individual try to keep their comments to 2 minutes, and as time permits, we'll have 40 minutes for public comment at the front end of the meeting. If we have additional individuals for public comment and time allows at the conclusion of the meeting, we can reopen for general public comment. I do want to just clarify, I know that it was mentioned already that we have an agenda item for voting, meaning action on the agenda for purchasing additional portable metal detectors. As required by the Sunshine Act, we'll have unlimited public comment on that item, but I'd ask you to please keep it to the item itself, which means whether we should or should not purchase additional metal detectors. If you have other general safety comments, then those would be most welcome in the general comment period that we're in right now. I hope that makes things clear. It's a little bit wonky. We also have a couple people that are signed up in advance, so we're going to start with those individuals. I'm also going to mention that if you're online and did not sign up in advance, but you're interested in making a public comment, if you could raise your hand now, so we have a sense of how many people, that would be very helpful. And I'll do my best to go through those present and then alternate between online and other additional people in person that are interested in making comment. So if with a little grace from you guys, we'll do our best to go through this in a fair fashion. So from previous online signups, I have Scott Cole, I think, is one of my first individuals. I don't see Scott here in person. Scott, are you online? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to Shushushak Macarana. Is she online, perhaps? Also was a sign up. Okay. Then next we have Molly Martin. Yes, if you want to come join us at the podium, that would be wonderful. We usually ask you to state your name and where you reside in the district, just your township, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Molly Martin. I live in State College Borough. I'm a parent of an 11th grader and a 7th grader in our district, but I'm here speaking tonight because I'm also a sociologist and in the Department of Sociology and Criminology. Like everyone here, I'm terrified at the idea of losing any family or friends in a school shooting, and I understand that there's increasing calls for more security on campus, or any campus. I simply want to note that I was able to conduct a literature review to help provide some additional information and background. I've emailed all of the school board that information. I also have handouts or copies if you would like for others who maybe didn't receive that information. The short version is that, of course, students' sense of school safety is important for their academic and performance. They need to feel safe to do well. However, the research suggests that permanent, long-term inclusion of metal detectors at schools actually is associated with lower sense of school safety. And it's not clear that it's effective in reducing the presence of weapons on campus or in reducing gun violence. Therefore, I recognize that there is a greater pressure, perhaps, to make the metal detectors permanent, but I would encourage the board to consider all safety options. One thing I did find in the literature review was that random metal detector use was actually associated with greater reduction in weapons on campuses. And so the expectation or not knowing when it would happen is actually shown to be more effective. So there's a a range of things to consider, and I appreciate that. The literature suggests, however, that non-technological sort of safety measures, such as those that were used exactly in like social networks and say something, see something, are actually often more effective. And lastly, I would say for my 15 seconds to my community members, if you're interested in this issue, it is also shown in the literature that schools in states with greater enforcement and legislation around gun control are at lower risk of having school shootings. Therefore, if you are interested in, you could consider calling your representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Next up on my list, I have James Howell. James, are you present on remotely? Oh, okay, that's fine. So then I have Regina Brannon. Or perhaps it's Regina. Forgive me if it's wrong.
She's on.
Okay, she's online. Okay, Regina, would you like to share your public comment? You should be able to unmute yourself, and I think tech will have you unmuted as well.
Certainly, thank you so much. I was trying to get some clarification about something from the April 7th board meeting, just because I just wanted to see for mine as far as substitute pay rates. This was slide 10 in the minutes. And I just wanted to know if if these pay rates apply to everybody or to just teachers.
That's a great question. We're actually going to be talking about that again during the proposed budget, and so perhaps we'll be able to address that at that time. We'll have some of the staff in front of us, okay? Was there anything
Great.
additional?
Thank you. That's
Yep.
it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Next, I have Shay on my list.
Good evening, I'm Shay McGowan. I'm the president of SCAEA. I also teach at the high school. I reside in Patton Township. So while I am the SCAEA president, I didn't have time to do a formal survey of all members. I did speak with many high school members. So with that, I speak as an individual. I do represent many high school members' feelings about this last week. I stand before you today not just as the president of SCAEA and a member of the high school community, but as someone who deeply cares about the safety and well-being of our students and staff. In light of the recent threats that have shaken our high school, I want to emphasize the importance of continuing the use of metal detectors on our campus for at least another couple weeks. This past week, with the implementation of metal detectors and the increased police presence, I can honestly say that I have felt the safest I have in my 29 years at this school. It is disheartening to think that we had to resort to such measures, but the reality is that these tools are vital in maintaining a secure learning environment for our students. Just recently, we witnessed a concerning incident in the Pocono Mountain School District where a 12-year-old was caught attempting to enter school with a firearm, thanks to the vigilant use of metal detectors. This serves as a stark reminder of the risks that our schools face and highlights the crucial role that these safety measures play in preventing potential tragedies. The presence of metal detectors not only act as a deterrent for those who might consider bringing weapons onto campus, but it also provides reassurance to students, parents, and staff alike. Knowing that we have taken proactive steps to ensure safety allows everyone to focus on what matters most, education and personal growth. I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to the board, all administrators and directors, especially those at the high school, for all that you do for our students. Your commitment to their safety and success does not go unnoticed. By continuing to support the use of metal detectors, you are sending a clear message that our community prioritizes safety and is willing to take necessary measures to protect our children. In conclusion, let us not forget that safety is a fundamental right for every student. By maintaining the use of metal detectors, we are investing in a secure future where learning can flourish without fear. Thank you for your time and for your unwavering dedication to the safety of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to move on to some of our signups from the front when people entered. I have, is it Via Helling? Leah?
Hello, my name is Via. I'm a junior at State High and I live in the State College Borough. I just wanted to talk about how I feel about the security at my school. My school has tons of security. There are plenty of security guards who roam the hallways making sure that people are where they're supposed to be. We have passes that are color-coded for the current year that teachers must sign. This is all very good, but something I think that was lacking was the entrance security. That was until there was a threat. I am so happy that our school was able to combat this threat with constant update emails from the superintendent and my principals that were very helpful, and that we were fortunate enough to already have 2 metal detectors. Putting these up last week was one of the best things we could do for the situation, and I was very happy with the step up in ID checking, backpack checking, etc. However, there isn't a magical day where a threat suddenly ends. Sure, we can feel safer, but I still believe that our school should maintain the security for as long as possible. I believe that security guards at every entrance should be thoroughly checking our IDs and our student and teacher IDs, even if they see the same people every day, because I was able to just show my PowerSchool home screen, which was super easy, and I was just let in. Anybody could get access to this screen, and boom, you're in the school carefree. We should be checking the student's actual ID picture to match it with their face, which would make sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be. I'm so grateful for my school and everything that it has to offer and the opportunities, but I still want to, and I'm sure many others want to feel safe where we're learning. I think that even though it is much more tedious, the metal detectors should be kept, and that checking our student IDs thoroughly will really help our school feel safer where we are learning and having fun.
Thank you, Via. I also have Melinda forgive me, I'm Lenderman.
It's okay. Everybody. Hi, good evening. My concern is that I know
I'm sorry, can you just share your name and where you reside in the
I'm
district?
Melinda Lenzeman. I'm in Half Moon Township. I know in the past there have been safety drills, but I hope that the school thinks about having more education and in the actual procedure of what to do during a school shooter. My son, as well as classmates and even some teachers, have concerns if they're in the hallway, cafeteria, if they're in the bathroom, what would they do if a school shooter? I think that the school needs to go over these different scenarios and explain to students what they should do. They should answer any concerns. I know everybody in the school board, I really appreciate the police and everybody's efforts this week. I know it has been a difficult week, but my main concern is about my son and other students' safety. From what my son has told me, nothing has been done in the school to discuss what their feelings are. There has been no in-services to say, oh, how are you doing? Do you have any questions? They have metal detectors. Their parents are freaking out. It's no reassurances that the school has given to these students that are teenagers going through life, just trying to go to school. So I hope that my thoughts are taken into consideration. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to ask to check online again if we have any other public commenters that have their hand raised. None. Okay. That's the completion of the signups that I have. Is there anyone here present this evening spontaneously that would like to give public comment? Okay. Then I'm going to take one more, let's do one more check of online because sometimes that really lags. I don't want to neglect anyone. Nothing. Yeah.
I was going to say, just to reiterate, it's okay if you didn't sign up. We are happy to hear from you if you're just here and you'd like to say something.
Yes.
Because I do see a couple people that look like you might want to come up, and that's okay. And if you don't, that's okay too, but I just want you to feel comfortable coming up if you want to speak.
Yep. Yeah, apologies if that wasn't clear enough. Okay, I appreciate the double check. Okay, we have one person online. Oh, she took it down. One more, okay. Sure, did you want to come up to the podium? And you can share your name and where you reside in the district. Welcome.
Hi, I am Leah Schrag. I'm a student at State High. And I am very in favor of the metal detectors. I think they are important for children to stay safe. I don't think any student should ever feel unsafe at school. I don't think any student should ever walk the halls knowing that they could be hurt or killed. I don't think any student should lay in their bed at night wondering if tomorrow's "I love you" is the last time they ever say it to their parents. I think metal detectors, although they are an incredible, they're incredibly safe, and although they are somewhat of an imposition in the morning, it takes a little bit longer to get in. It is so imperative for children to feel safe at school, and it's so important for everyone to be safe at school.
Thank you. As a parent, did you want to add something? Can you share your name before you start with us? When you're ready.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm Ashley Schrag. I'm Leah's mom.
Okay, take your time.
As you can see, and I'm sure a lot of other State High parents are feeling, this is horrible. Like, this is such a scary thing. To hear what my kid has been thinking about this week. And I think that speaks to why the continued presence of metal detectors, if that's what our kids need to feel safe and actually be able to concentrate at school, we owe that to them. And I also just feel, I'm hearing that it's on the agenda to purchase more, and I think that's wonderful that is being considered, but I felt like there was an implication that we were going to purchase them so we had them in the future in case another threat comes to light. And I just think, gosh, why would be reactive instead of proactive in our use of those metal detectors? I've also heard concerns, and I've not had time to research, about ratio of students to school resource officers, and I think that's something that also should be taken into account, not just in times like this, but as a consistent measure. I also have heard from my daughter that ID checking prior to this incident was really lax, and I'm glad to hear that that's been picked up. I think that really is important to continue. Very grateful for what State College Police have done to try to keep students safe at this time, but I did feel like I heard the representative from the police say today that they're still investigating leads, and I think it's dismaying that there is a plan to stop using metal detectors tomorrow if they're not done investigating leads. Again, I think we should be proactive, not reactive, when we're talking about the grave safety of students. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others here in person? Yes, come on up.
I'll make it quick.
If you can just share your name.
I don't need this
for us.
microphone either. My name is Anthony Lendeman. It's my wife Melinda who spoke earlier. We live in Half Moon Township. In respect to what the kids are saying, I think their opinion is the most important part of this, how they feel coming to school every day, at least for the remainder of the year. And I know the first woman who spoke said she was a sociologist, and there's different evidence either way. I think a survey should be sent out to the students, specifically of State High, whether they feel comfortable with the metal detectors being used for us of the year. Our opinion is one thing, but they're the ones who have to go to school every single day and feel safe and be able to focus for the rest of the school year. So I think it should be left up to the kids, primarily before us. That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to offer one more check, even though I've already said one more, to online, because I know this is an important topic to our community. No. Okay. Anyone else here in person? Okay. I'm going to take a point of privilege and just make a few remarks without objection from the board. First, I want to say I appreciate hearing from all of you this evening, students, teachers, and families, all alike. Understandably, this incident has shaken our community to the core. I know for many, this is maybe the first time you're looking at who is the leadership for your school district. Others of you may know some of us as friends, coworkers, or neighbors. What I want to emphasize to all of you is that over and above anything, what you need to know about us is that we take the safety of those in our care very seriously. That means students and our school district employees. For many of us, people in our schools are quite literally our family, and the others we care about just like family. Speaking only for myself, I want to say for a decade I have served this board and faced decisions that impact everyone's safety, whether it be the design of our new buildings, the staffing of our nursing offices, the stocking of Narcan, epinephrine, bleed kits, or how we work with first responders to prepare for any emergency. The safety of the SCASD community has been top of mind for me year in and year out. I've educated myself on all the critical decisions we've been asked to make. I also have no doubt that the safety of this community is also top of mind for my fellow board members, both past and present. Protecting against targeted school violence is no different, and what I have come to know from reading, conferences, and listening to experts over this decade that I've served is that this is a complex, multifaceted problem with no single clear-cut strategy. But over the last 26 years of facing this issue, and yes, sadly, it is that long, two things rise to the top in terms of averting these disasters. Number one is a tight-knit community with positive relationships between students and adults that lead to people speaking out when a concern arises. That alert must be followed with a high-quality threat assessment and immediate and expert interventions. This is something our district is familiar with and does well, I believe. Number two, the additional thing that is most effective is keeping firearms out of the hands of a potential attacker. Schools have agency over the first thing. Gun owners and legislatures have agency over the second. What I promise is that with my fellow board members, we will carefully examine any tool there is to keep our community safe. I feel confident we'll continue to base decisions on evidence from experts, and we will support directing district resources to the most appropriate and effective measures we can take. I hope everyone can do their best to support their students and as we move forward for the rest of the school year. With that, I think we're going to move on to the agenda. We're going to start with what we call our consent agenda. This includes several items that will be passed in a single motion for approval. We'll go through each section by category for any questions from board members. First up, we have the minutes. Any corrections there? Next up, we have finance and personnel. We have an agreement with Senclear for our preschool classrooms, some athletic sponsorships, and routine financial items. Any questions in that department? Okay. Instructional programs, we have some out-of-state trips, course approvals for enrollments less than 12, and an agreement with St. Francis University. Any questions with those? Yeah, Carly.
For 8A, I just always like looking at the field trips requests. I think more so than a lot of my fellow board members, because I really believe in field trips. I think they are very important use to help kids learn. And one of the things that perked my interest was about the survivor science. When I look at these trips, I always kind of figure out what they're gonna do. But the survivor science, if somebody could let me know, like, what does this entail in Altoona, Pennsylvania? If anyone knows.
I'm not sure. Oh, Eli, do you happen to know?
Yeah, I've got a friend in survivor science, and I believe that's their final graded challenge for the class, which is, if it is the overnight trip, that would be overnight wilderness survival as an assessment for the class.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That does. I thought it was something along those lines, but I was thinking Altoona,
he's
Pennsylvania.
correct.
So I was a bit curious about that, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you have something else?
Yeah, I do.
ahead.
For B, some of the courses that are virtual, it was just curious to me, like how many students could sign up for these virtual classes?
Actually, and before somebody answers you, to piggyback on that, I actually was confused that the one class was going to be virtual, and I just didn't know if that meant like asynchronous out of the school day, or whether this, like, why would it be virtual during the school day? So I was a little perplexed by that. I think it was, was it advanced accounting, or I forget which one was.
Yeah.
Advanced Accounting 3, yeah, it's going to be virtual, and I wasn't quite sure how that was working. Did you happen to know, Laura, that you wanted to come tell us?
Come up to the
You have to come up, I'm sorry. I'm glad you asked that question, because I'd forgotten I had that one. Yeah, you'll have to turn your mic on. Mhm.
You're asking about the virtual VA Advanced Accounting 3. It's really, those students are working with the teacher in the school, but they're doing some online programming.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's a virtual component to it, but they're actually with the teacher during some other planning times of hers.
Okay. So they're not co-seated with another class and doing it, they're meeting, okay.
Okay, that was.
Yeah, Aaron?
I actually was curious because we had the discussion about IB many months ago at this point. Is this the last year of the IB classes? Or, because I was under the impression that
Yes,
this
yes.
was, okay.
This is the last year.
This is the last
It's
year that we'll
phased
have
out.
those, okay, all right.
So that the students that were already participating can complete their program.
And for number 9 and 10, even though you're saying that you don't have enough students now, but you predict that by the school year, you usually do?
We usually do by the time the school year rolls around through scheduling. Those options allow for another physical PE class, whether maybe there might be a mistake in a schedule, right? It kind of frees up some scheduling spaces in case you want to pick up other labs or other course requests. They have typically, over the last 3 years, filled up, and we've offered multiple sections of them. It also gives some flexibility for students who might not want to be in a giant PE class. There's some things that make uncomfortable. This gives them another option as well. So they have typically, over the last 3 years, filled up.
So I appreciate you putting this on the schedule because as of now, they're not filled up. But you
Correct.
predict that they will be.
I predict that those two will be filled by the time we go through scheduling and kids make schedule changes and adapt their schedules to what they want.
Okay.
That's typically when that happens.
Right, so if there's a class they didn't manage to get in their schedule, but they could move their
But they
PE
could-
class, then they'll
Correct, then they
make that
could
swap.
adjust and be like, oh, I could take that and still get the course I want. So it does give us a little more flexibility.
Okay, is that all yours?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Others on this side of the table?
You wanna, I think we were looking up our CTC. I want to just go back to the accounting
Oh, sure, that would be helpful.
because I
Something
wanted
to
to
add?
double check on that. According to CTC, it is co-seated with Advanced Accounting 2.
Okay, that makes more sense then, and
Right.
then they're doing the more advanced work
Correct.
for their online module.
Right.
Okay. Debbie, you got something too?
I just wanted to check, none of these lists that there are staffing implications, and so,
Correct.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. In the past, that was an extra piece of information, but not needed this year, it sounds like, so appreciate that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I
Anything
have
else?
C now.
Oh, okay. Any
Okay.
others about the course request? All right. So C,
Okay.
Carlene, what else did you have? The St.
C-
Francis
Yes,
agreement?
the San Francis Wish, I don't know if
I know
you
Jonathan
all-
might, have that answer.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Maybe,
C.
maybe not. Oh, I know, the St. Francis one is about the credits from the
Yeah.
CTC. What's your question? 'Cause
My question is
I don't know if I-
basically, has it been opened up to the students yet? And do we know if any students have signed up for this?
I think this is our second year. I thought we did it previously.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we did, huh? Oh, Ben's online. Ben, if you want to clarify, you can, but yeah, is this a renewal, Ben?
Hello. Yeah, I've worked here 5 years and we've done it every year since I've been here. We usually have about 25 students that complete it. It's been very successful.
Great, thanks very much. I couldn't remember how long, but I
Yeah.
had thought we had done it in the past.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, it's a nice opportunity for students to get advanced college credit at a very reasonable price point. All right, there were a lot of things in instructional programs. Anything else? All right. Well, that's our most important section anyway. Physical plant, we have some change orders for the Mountain Any Elementary Expansion Project and routine contracts. Anything from anyone? All right. And then finally, we have approval of policies we've reviewed at previous meetings. No last clarifications on those? All right. Thank you. Then I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 6 through 10, as presented.
Miller, so moved.
I'll second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any last questions or discussion on any of the consent agenda items? Do we have any public comment regarding the consent agenda? All right, then board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda has passed. We'll move on to action items this evening. First up, we have agenda item 11A is a motion to approve, help me say it, Chris Nikich as the 2025 opening day speaker. This is shown in attachment 11A.
Buck, so moved.
Quebecois, second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? So this is our keynote speaker for our community of staff for opening day. All right. Any public comment on this item? No. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is passed. Agenda item 11B is a motion to approve 2025-2026 proposed final budget. This is shown in attachment 11B.
Miller, so moved.
Colby, second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Randy, was there some information you guys wanted to share first?
We would like to do so, yes, please.
That would be lovely.
So tonight, your final budget is presented for adoption. The proposed final budget is presented for adoption. The final budget will then be presented at the first meeting in June. In addition to our budget information, various analysis and data points, we've also presented the PDE Form 2028, which is the budget document that is required for submission. It will be available later this week on our website and then also in the finance office for public inspection. Included is in our budget proposal is a list of new positions that we've discussed previously. In order to help with our recruitment, interview, and selection process, we will ask that at your May 5th meeting, those positions will be approved to allow us to begin that posting process. Mr. Vigileone will review changes in projected revenue and expenses, as well as additional information and dissection of our budget components this evening as well. Go ahead.
Good evening. In addition to the memo that went out there with a bunch of information, we'll take you through the PowerPoint presentation, but feel free at any point to ask questions on either document. Going forward to slide 3, again, the primary action being taken tonight is the approval of the 25-26 proposed budget. There's a whole bunch of information in the presentation as listed there. But moving on, the key point is the recommendation this year is to move the tax increase at the Act 1 index, which would leave the district about the same place structurally as we were for the 24-25 budget when it was put together. Moving forward through here, the next slide also gives you a pretty good idea of where the budgetary growth has been over the past 2 years. We have repeated, leading up to this, that personnel costs and increase are what is driving the budget increase and us towards the Act 1 index. Moving on, slide 6, as Randy mentioned, the new positions are listed in here, as well as the increase in the substitute rate. The question earlier tonight, there's a pay increase coming for all substitutes, but there is an adjustment to market for substitute teachers.
Just making sure I understand. So both categories, paraprofessionals and teachers, will both see a change, but one is more substantial, directed at the market.
Correct.
Is that the right framing?
Yes.
Got it.
Moving on to changes in projected expense. There was a decrease in health care expense based upon recent projections from Conrad Siegel. It's been very good news. We have always been told with our actuaries in the self-insured model, 2 good years, 1 bad year. Last year was a bad year, and the adjustment is typically to the bad year, and then you cycle up. Well, last year's bad year, which means a high claims year, was in excess of what's normally seen. So, but the good news is through our actuaries, this year has been more of a regression to the mean, which has allowed us to lower our projected interest rate from 25, 26 and going forward. Not interest rate, projected insurance expense going forward from 25, 26. And that is shown as with the projection master where it was starting in 25, 26 is a blue line going through 33, 34, and it has been adjusted down to that orange dotted line. Changes in projected expense. A lot of it we have talked before about increased in utility costs, an increased effort in security. New is once we've finished compiling the budget and assessed where charter schools are, there was a significant increase in the charter school. We'll get into that a little deeper into that in this presentation. And there's a reduction and elimination to transfers to capital reserve fund. On the electricity side, the district continues to purchase electricity on the open market. The most recent rate was obtained for the 25-26 year in December of 2024. Electricity rates, looking back, a 3-year contract was entered into by the board in 2020-2021 timeframe where prices were lower in the midst of the pandemic at about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Currently, with the most recent agreement, it's gone just to almost 8 cents a kilowatt hour, which is almost 60% higher than they were 5 years ago. The anticipated reduction in the estimated electricity due to the PPA is not included in the 25-26 budget. The impact of this rate reduction will need to be assessed in advance of the 26-27 budget because at this point in time, the PPA is scheduled to go into effect in the fall of 2026. And with an earlier presentation, the estimated rate was at 7.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Also included in that presentation was the legal and consultant fees associated with the project, as well as the payback estimate period. And that presentation was in November of 2024. Moving forward, slide 11, and we'll just take through some of the larger increases. The district-wide is increased due to salaries and benefits. The finance and operations, the decrease is due to contingency. We had talked at the last meeting about the change in the structural budget and how we're handling healthcare, moving it to an internal service fund. That would decrease the contingency amount in case of another bad year for health insurance. That's been removed from that budget. It has been raised elsewhere. Just through the normal operating course of the business. In the assistant administrator's budget, the appeals has been increased. We've seen a large number of appeals coming through, much higher than in previous years. We did talk to the assessment office in the past year over that, and he says that's going to be standard operating procedure going forward from his opinion, so we increased that amount. And then there was a change. The assistant business administrator's budget onboarded effects of PSERS in the retirement calculations for people who are buying back service. Previously, it was in the HR budget, so that's just switching buckets. Physical plant, the increase is utilities as well as repairs and maintenance. And in transportation, this is contracted carriers, the increases associated with that. So that is the buses getting kids to schools and activities. Moving on to slide 13 and 14. If you're looking at the staffing increases, as we talked about with the new additions, you can see with the 17 proposed new staff, they are predominantly within the instructional side under the SCARE contract or the SCESPA contract. Moving on to slide 14. Slide 15. The structural deficit of almost $4 million is shown about halfway down the page on the revenue less expense. There was a planned usage all along for the last few years to spend down the committed fund balance for debt service. So that will take $3 million of that $4 million gap, and leaving about $1 million, which again is very similar to where last year's structural budget was, and that would leave an ending unassigned fund balance of $12.9 million with a fund balance percentage of 6.11%. Slide 16 breaks down the various components, and we'll get into that a little bit later within the budget, as does 17 on the expenditure side. On slide 18, the funding by source, as you can see, the district is 79% funded by the local taxpayer, 20% funded by the state, and 1% from the federal government. This is just on the general fund. This doesn't include any of the other funds, such as food service, which also gets money from the Department of Agriculture.
I appreciate you pointing that out, because I was going to do the same, because I want the public to be really clear when we talk about, I hate to use federal dollars that may or may not remain in our budget. While 1.4 is the number for the general fund, there is a substantial amount that goes to our food service fund that is our reimbursement for meals. And that really leads the number. I think in total, we've talked a little bit about over $4 million in federal dollars that our district relies upon. So thanks, Joe, for bringing that up and allowing me to expand on it a little bit.
Thank you. Moving forward into local revenue, as you can see, local revenue, the largest portion is real estate tax at a combined 79%, with another 14% coming from earned income tax. So the revenue stream, if you're counting the local share, is almost 80% of the budget, and then over 90% of the local share comes from those two sources. On the state share, it's distributed a little more broadly between special education funding, basic education funding, and reimbursements for Social Security and retirement costs. And on the federal side, as you can see, the largest portion is the titles programs. The next slide is a slide that's been around for a few years. The red line is from the 2019-2020 budget. If we had increased taxes each year by 2% per year, where the tax revenue would be at, through 25-26. The blue dotted line is what the actual tax increase is, and both of these are with real estate value growth as well. What the actual tax increases are and where we'll end up. At this point in time, the actual tax increases averaged about 2.4% per year over that 5 to 6 year period, which I think is fairly reasonable, especially considering the amount of inflation that has been seen on the exit of the pandemic. Car prices and other various things have gone up by in excess of 20%. The next couple slides are definitions. These roll forward each year as they pertain to the instructional support services and so on and so forth. And those are now listed on the left side for the instructional programs, and those are the functions utilized within the chart of account string and reported to on the PD 2028. Going across the top in the columns, those are the large salary portions that will appear also within the multi-year projections given to you. If you look down the columns in J and K and across the bottom rows, which is too small for my eyes, it shows that you are relatively similarly structured in terms of expenditures year over year from last year's budget to this year's budget. Budget expenses by function, you can see 57% is instructional, with another 31% of support services. 10% is going to other expenses, financing uses, and we'll break those down a little bit further in the next few slides. The instructional expenses, as you can see, it's largely for the regular students, about 70%. But the special ed programs have been growing. We'll show you a little more information on special education, but that is about 24% of the instructional expenses are going to the special education function. So moving on to support expenses, it's pretty broad, and the big areas are physical plants, people who are in the schools, keeping the schools running, student transportation, making sure the buses are flowing, as well as administrative support, whether in the buildings or whether it's central offices. Other expense and financing uses, this is largely capital and ongoing maintenance that we utilize that for to keep the buildings up and for new projects. Some of the capital or some of the debt aspects that we have on the books are related to the high school, Coral Street Elementary, Radio Park Elementary, and Spring Creek Elementary expansions. Moving forward, budget expenses by object. We've stated before, 73 cents in next year's budget on the dollar are associated with personnel costs. In terms of charter school enrollment, the enrollment continues to decline. As you're looking at the 23 actual to 24-25 projected, that is attendance as we're seeing it right now on a month-to-month basis. 25-26 is broken out. Is assumed to be the same as 24-25 at this time. And you can see each of these types of students in the enrollment are broken out not only by regular education or special education, but also brick and mortar charter school, which are in a building, versus a cyber charter school.
So, oh, go ahead and finish, Joe.
Okay. So if students are staying level or going down, prices are going up, cost is going up. What is the reason why cost is going up? It is a funding formula associated with a budget. As you add more costs within the budget as prices rise, so does the tuition cost being paid to the charter school. When that tuition cost increases, so does the amount that we've got to budget for charter schools.
That's exactly what I was hoping you would explain. Thanks.
Okay. So this slide was shown to you with the December, I think it was done in March, but it was as of December data with special education. And the information we pulled from this slide is really the number of students in this special education enrollment. It's increased from 779 students in 2020 to 982 students in 2024. So in a 4-year period, a 26% increase in special education students in the district. So the bad news, but the not so bad news is last year when the multi-year projection was handed to you, the blue line showed what the fiscal cliff looked like in terms of where we expected costs to do. The difference between the blue line and the orange line being higher is better. But it's really the reason why we sort of switched planes is twofold. Number one, it's the increase to the Act 1 index over the assumptions last year, lower rate for the real estate tax. And secondly, it's the health insurance and the reassessment of where that's going to be based upon better data this year versus where we were led to believe it would be last year based upon the data. And then this is pretty much the exact same slide as the last one. It's just broken down by fund balance component. The blue one is the unrestricted fund balance. And as you can see, the red area is a debt service, which has a planned spend down that we talked about a little bit earlier as a committed fund balance. The green one is for health insurance, and that is leaving the general fund to go to its own internal service fund. Supplemental tax rebate, this is continuing on. The amount spent in 24-25 appear to be trending right to the $100,000 mark, which is a substantial increase over the prior few years. We're putting that to we've matched the states program. In the states program, I don't know if this is ever been brought up, but it went from $35,000 to $45,000 for the income threshold. So there was a $10,000 additional increase to allow another group of people to be eligible for the program. And then it also made the levels increase a lot more. I believe it was 250 up to 600, and now it goes 380 up to 1,000 with a 50% bonus as well on top of that. So as the state's program became more generous, so did the districts, which turns around and helps the homeowners who probably need it the most. And then finally, the last slide that I have before any questions are the next steps. The next step is at the committee of the whole meeting, we'll have a budget update. Hope to have a little more information from our actuaries as well as our insurance company on health insurance. and some other various items, just as we get a little more data a little closer to the end of the year. The district on May 12th will publish its notice of intent to adopt the final budget. There will be a board meeting and a budget hearing on May 19th for the final budget for 25-26, and then the board action on June 2nd, which adopts the final budget, the homestead farmstead exclusion resolution, annual tax levy resolution, as well as the installment payment resolution. And then we need by July 15th to submit the 25-26 final budget on Form 2028 to the Department of Education. With that, I will be happy to take any questions and await the results of your vote.
Thanks. That was really helpful. There's one thing that you mentioned that you showed in the presentation, but didn't happen to talk about this time around, that I just want to call a little bit of attention to for the public, because I've seen some questions about this in various places, social media or in the newspaper. Even though we're seeing development in the community, such as new buildings or new student housing or other issues, we are also concurrently seeing a lot more tax appeals from a variety of owners. So even when those establishments go up, sometimes they're still dealing with some lagging filling from COVID. We're also seeing, we have a lot of loss of businesses at the local mall, other strip malls with vacancies. And so whenever that happens to those businesses, they have an option to appeal and change their tax rates to become lower. So while we see growth, sometimes we also see decline in other areas, and it's really about what the net result is. And you mentioned that in your presentation in the notes, so I just wanted to call the public's attention to that as well. Questions from board members? Gretchen? I don't need to go first. That's okay, go first.
I just had a question about the health insurance being separated in the future. So what were the criteria of making that decision, and why was it like that before, but now it's going to be different?
As we were entering into the self-funded environment, we just maintained our health insurance costs in the general fund. Last year, we saw a dramatic increase, and that has then when those peaks and valleys occur, that you kind of lose the long-term trend in the general fund. And as we knew this all along, but as we've researched more and more, and we've added a couple years of experience, our actuaries and our auditors, and talking with some of our other colleagues across the state, it was suggested that we move those costs to another cost center or an internal service fund. So that's what we'll be doing. So as we've explained previously, we'll be charging this internal service fund an amount per employee, similar to what we were when we were fully insured. The claims will be paid out of that internal service fund. They get revenue from the general fund, and when we see the end results, we'll determine if the rate needs to go up that's charged to the general fund, or if it can be decreased. If we see any trends and it does not allow enough fund balance to be in our reserve to equal the 3 to 6 month rate, then we'll have to make some other decisions then. Does that answer that?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Debbie, did you have some?
Yeah, thanks. If we could go back to slide 22, I just wanted to, because we went over it pretty fast, and it's also a little bit small to see. I just wanted to repeat something for the public to be clear. It's titled tax rate comparison, but I think a better title would be tax revenue comparison, because the blue line, which shows the actual tax revenue that we've had over time, right? It's always increasing. But we did have 2 years where we had 0% tax increases. That was, we kept taxes exactly level during COVID. And the reason the blue line still went up is because we had real estate, right, increases to the tax rolls. So I know it's hard to hear the taxes will be going up again, but as a reminder, part of what this is showing is, if we have years where we have very, very low tax increases or 0% tax increases, we generally have to balance that out with a higher tax increase in another year in order to keep ourselves on a sort of steady projection line. because, as Joe pointed out, a big part of our budget is driven by staffing and the costs of our personnel who deserve to be paid appropriately, and we have contractual obligations, so those go up. And we have had a lot of inflation in the last couple of years, and we can't control that. So I know it's hard to hear that we're suggesting a tax increase, but that's, unless we are going to be cutting programs, those are kind of our options. Thanks.
Yeah, what I've explained oftentimes when asked this question is compared to other governmental entities, our proportion of personnel costs are substantially higher. And when that's the case, without an increase, we would subsequently have less and less comparative revenue each year to the point where we would have to start growing class sizes, which is definitely something we don't want to do, or eliminating programming. So if we were to, for example, have no tax increase for 5 years, we would have to start to eliminate really substantial offerings and things that we do in this district if we did that. And that's why we look to a steady 2% rate as we move forward. I'll go to this side of the table. Yep. Aaron?
I'm actually kind of jumping off of what they're talking about. I had asked Joe before about making part of the table the ability to kind of change what tax increase does to the revenue. And I wondered if, I'm looking at slide 34, I know that we sort of do an average 2%, but I wondered if in the future we could include what we would project about, I mean, is the Act 1 index ever less than 4%?
Oh, yes.
It does change.
It's
Okay,
adjusted
all right.
annually.
Okay, so.
It's an inflationary index, so 4% is on the higher side.
Oh,
than-
okay, because I was thinking if we could have another curve that's like, that assumes, but if that's not the case, then I retract that comment.
Thanks.
Deb-
No, it's important to understand. Go ahead, Ann.
Sorry.
No.
Deb kind of addressed.
Yeah.
Deb kind of addressed the question I had. But, oh, good. But I did, so I'm not going to address that question, but it did prompt another one. In thinking about slide 17, the deferred maintenance and the supplies and equipment, is there any sense that we will have a bad year, kind of like we did with healthcare in relationship to tariffs? Like, is there any kind of...
Got a dartboard?
Pardon?
Got a dartboard?
That's really? No, I don't, and I'm not good at darts, so, yeah.
Now, CJ didn't laugh as much as I thought he would. I'm trying to add humor. We have no idea. We have built in a slight inflationary index to those costs. We also keep a contingency for those types of things, as well as unexpected expenses. But now, we don't have any crystal balls lying around, unfortunately.
You're very good, though, so I thought you might. Okay,
Well, the
thank
thing I'll add to that, though, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience, having done this for a while, especially our experience from COVID, is sometimes those kind of effects lag a little bit. And so we may not see increased costs for a year or two potentially, because it's when we start, when, you know, turnover happens in businesses of their stockpile or their supplies or different things, then we start to see escalation. So we have to be careful that, like, we don't assume if we do okay in 1 year that it's still going to be okay the next year. Sometimes there's some lagging impacts.
That, if I could just add that you're absolutely right, Amy. The other thing that we will do is that, especially certain large purchases or large quantity purchases, we will monitor, and we may hold back until a certain point in time in the year, until we have better information. On the flip side, if we believe that something's going to increase in costs, we may buy ahead. So we will take all information that we can, and each year, it honestly can be a different year.
Yeah.
So for my own understanding then, are those two little items, the supplies and equipment and deferred maintenance, where we would see it?
You could see it throughout the budget. A couple years ago, it was transportation contracts. You know, to try to get staffing into some of these busing companies and different things, they had to recruit, pay more, therefore to put the students on the bus and to have the buses there and them to be able to fulfill. they needed to increase rates. So it can go for various line items, even up into, as you looked at salaries and, things that we've talked about with staffing. Listen, if everything goes up by 20%, car insurance went up by how much last year? Your employees still have to pay for car insurance to drive to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just also say I really applaud our staff because they do work really hard to look at that. Another example would be when we were facing supply chain issues in the early phasing out of the worst of COVID. There were times we preemptively looked at buses or tractors or computer equipment because we knew there was long lag times and different things. And so I really applaud our team for being really aware of that and keeping tabs and trying to make sure things keep running smoothly here in the district. Jackie, do you have something to ask?
I just have a quick request. Since we have several advocacy days coming up in Harrisburg, and the cyber charter funding is such a hot button issue, would it be possible to get slide 32 with the values? So that's the tuition rates over the years, and I can kind of guess about where they are, but if I could get the actual values on that graph, that would be
32,
awesome.
33, combine those two.
Yeah, that'd be great. 32 and I think it's 31, 32.
31 and 32.
Yeah, just those tuition numbers. The representatives are always asking me for those numbers. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Being able to really articulate our exact savings is really important if there was to be reform. Any other questions that I've missed? Yeah, Aaron.
I just had a comment to make. When I read these budgets, and this is really the second one I'm seeing now, what is pretty striking to me is if you look at the salaries table on 25, that the salaries for regular instruction and the salaries for basically everything else, other instruction, special programs, support services, are about equal, which I think really speaks to the fact that we're, as an organization, expected to do, again, and they're all essential things, that we're expected to do a lot more than just send the kid into the building and teach math, which I think I've heard a lot of people say, well, why can't we just cut everything else? I think if you read the budget, it's pretty clear, because go line by line and tell me what in there isn't important, and I don't see anything that we could get rid of.
Yeah, well, certainly there's a number of things that we are mandated to provide, but not necessarily funded for, which we say frequently at this table. Any other comments on the proposed budget? Okay. Any public comment on the 2025-2026 proposed final budget? Anyone here in person? Do I have anyone remotely? All right, with that, board members saying aye, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. The final budget is passed. Thank you. Agenda item 11C is a motion to approve permission to bid additional 2025-2026 capital projects as shown in attachment 11C.
Huff so moved.
Buck second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on these items?
I have a question.
Yep, Gretchen?
I asked this in the CAC for facilities, and Mike wasn't quite sure, but for the north parking expansion, are those spots all going to be for students or all of them?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Any public comment on this item? All right, board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is passed. Agenda item 11D is a motion to approve the purchase of 3 additional weapon detection systems. This is shown in attachment 11D.
Kavakos, so move.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Is there anything the administration wants to add additionally? Okay. Any questions or discussion from board members? Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, I would like a discussion in the not too distant future with policy on deployment, on our deployment, decisions around deployment for these systems. I think that that's an important thing that the board needs to consider. That's all.
Other questions, discussion, comments?
I know it's
Jackie?
already been said, but I just wanted to say thank you again to Penn State for loaning us, increasing our capacity when we needed it. And now I'm happy to vote to gain that capacity for ourselves so that we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, we were very fortunate that they had those available, that they aren't always available all the time. They use them for various things. Aaron?
I just wondered if there is there any like training required to use these?
Yes, we all had there was a certain training to use those. They wouldn't give it to us unless we went through the training.
Oh, okay, okay. Good to know.
That's a good business policy. Yes, Gretchen?
I just want to ditto what Peter said.
Any other added items? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item? Oh, what? Did you want to add something?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Board comment. I just need a little clarification on deployment. Normally, it's in an emergency situation in the past that we have deployed these. I don't know if you're like expecting us to run it by board before we deploy them, or just to use them, or just to come up with a process for deployment.
So I think
I'm just trying to get clarification, that's all.
that was shocking. I think that what would be helpful would be some clarity to the board around the conditions under which we would be using them, or have us bring that back to us. Current, certainly in the present moment, it's very top of mind. And so this is, I think everyone on the board thinks this is an entirely reasonable time to be using them. We also have members of the public who have said we should have them all the time. There are, we've heard from a researcher tonight with expertise in criminology and sociology who says, well, they can have long-term negative safety effects. And I'm going to follow what Dr. Bader said, which is, evidence-based reasoning. And so I just want to make sure that the board is apprised of how you'll be thinking about it, understanding that you also have to have the flexibility, should they not be permanent installations, to be able to deploy them quickly. And some of that, like there's policy and then obviously administrative regulation. I want to respect that boundary and also be as informed as we're able to be. Does that help?
Very much. As I spoke of earlier, we are going to have a debrief, and then after that debrief, we're going to bring forth in an informational session to the board of the security changes or protocols that we plan on implementing in the future.
Great.
So,
Right. So that some of that we would anticipate then, although I will say we will be sharing as much as we can. People who have attended when we are working on new buildings and things, you'll see that we don't necessarily share floor plans any longer for security reasons. So sometimes there's some fine details that is not shared with the public in order to make sure that our buildings are safe. So that's not an effort to keep things. It's what experts, certain things that experts recommend that are maintained in private because they're sensitive information. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I think now we're ready for public comment potentially on this item. Do we have anyone in person interested in making public comment regarding the purchase of these additional detectors? Anyone online? No. All right. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that item is passed. Next, we're going to move on to information reports. We have a number of policies to review that have come out of the Policy Development Committee, and have been vetted out and coming for a first read to the board. We have Ms. Simpson to present and give us some overview.
Good evening, everyone. It sounds like you're in a cave. We have several policies tonight to take a look at. One is a retirement, and the other ones, we'll just go down one by one. The first one, Policy 101, is mission statement, vision statement, and shared values. And the current policy that we had on the books was outdated. It had the wrong mission statement in it, so we updated and put our correct mission statement. In addition, PSBA recommended that we add our vision statement and our value statement to that policy. So that is Policy 101, which is the mission statement, vision statement, shared values. Any questions on that one? No? Okay, the next one, 121, field trips. We had quite a healthy discussion at our Policy Development Committee regarding field trips, and a lot of revisions to present on that policy. There's expanded sections for the purpose and the overview. The administration of medications section has been added to the draft policy, which is recommended by PSBA. Our original policy language regarding field trip request, funding, transportation, supervision, and compensation has not been included in the draft policy because it was determined those were more procedural items that would be included and possibly in AR. The definition of field trip has been revised for greater clarification, and the original policy language had academic and athletic competitions, and that has not been retained in the authority section as those trips do not constitute actual field trips. So that's been removed from there. And then in the authority section, there was a delineation of circumstances specific to participation for individuals who have already graduated. And we also received an additional suggestion in language from Deb Anderson under that authority section on page 2. The statement that starts with effective with the 25-26 school year, individuals cannot participate in international field trips that occur after the date of graduation. It was suggested that we add the word there after the date of their graduation. So if that is agreeable with everyone, we can go ahead and make that one-word addition for the next board meeting.
I see a lot of nodding heads. That
Seems good.
That's
Thank
pretty
you. Thank
straightforward.
you for that catch. It does make it more clear. So that is the overview on field trips, and I believe Stephanie Beaver is joining online too if anybody has additional questions.
So just for the benefit of the board members who weren't at the policy meeting, we had a discussion about it because I think that is a change in policy. And maybe the administrators want to speak more to that. If it's a field trip that occurs in the summer, this would not allow students that have already graduated from high school to attend the field trip. Unless, if you look at the sentence above what we were just looking at, unless it's an extension of their participation in an academic learning experience, which they participated in during the school year. So for example, the Skills USA, right? If that summer competition, the culminating event happened after graduation, that student would be allowed to participate, was how I understood it, right?
I believe that's correct.
Right, so that is a slightly different thing, but I didn't want it to read that people can't go on field trips in the summer. In general, the idea was, and again, I think this came more from the administration, I think that's fair to say, that we don't want students who have already graduated from high school going on summer field trips with students who are currently still students in the high school. Partly because most of them would be over the age of 18. There might,
Shenanigans.
well, international field trips, the drinking age might be lower, et cetera, so forth. So there were concerns with that. Is that a fair assessment of what we talked about?
How formal is the culminating activity? I understand, for example, what skills is. And I went through this situation with Bellefonte quite extensively in the last 12 months. So what about a student that's been taking Spanish for the entirety of their high school experience, and there is a trip to Spain that follows. It's not the same in my mind as a skills competition, but it's a continuation of that academic activity that they've been involved with as a student.
And so it's sponsored as a club, not of the class.
So it wouldn't count.
Correct.
So the difference between a co-curricular activity and some other, what we'd probably characterize as extracurricular. And for the public, co-curricular means it's tied to an actual course that we're teaching. So some of our band courses where we teach band and then they're in the band. I had trouble with that when I first came on the board. Other questions?
So I just want to make sure, because I was not confused, and then I got confused, and I think I'm unconfused again.
Awesome. That's where we want you, unconfused.
Right.
Can you stay there?
Yes.
Excellent. I like it.
Awesome.
Any others on field trips? I really appreciate the hard work that went into this because I do think it was past time that we address some issues about field trips and make sure that the things we're doing are most proactive in protecting students and the district. Want to go on to the next one?
Yep, sure. Policy 132, alternative education. PSBA does not maintain that policy and does not recommend that, so this is a recommendation to retire that policy. So we'll, if that's agreeable, we're going to retire that policy.
And also we kind of have, what we need covered, we have covered, right?
Correct,
So.
correct. Yeah, Peter.
So I understanding that this, we're retiring this, changes to Delta. I think that as a kind of note on this, that we have talked previously about Delta being a magnet school, and so I just want to use this as an opportunity to sort of bubble that up for a moment and say, magnet school. I'll let it go.
Okay. I think there are some committees working on some of that, and
Great.
so there's things in progress. Yeah, Gretchen?
Yeah, that was kind of where my question was coming from, is, so if we get rid of this policy, then are we gonna have a replacement policy for alternative education? Like for magnet schools, or will alternative education be guided by the board since policies are the responsibility of the board, or is that just gonna be gone?
I think what we had talked about at one point was that alternative ed was, it wasn't something that rose to the level, like we're required legally to have an alternative education program, so there's school code things that we have to meet in order to do that. And I think PSBA feels, my understanding is that it's not necessary to have it in policy because there's not a lot of purview from the board as to what we can or, I mean, there would be things if we wanted to add that we could potentially put in policy, but right now I think we pretty much offer what we're required to offer, and therefore it wouldn't rise to policy. We've talked a little bit about, there are some districts that have magnet schools that have a magnet policy, and there are some districts that have magnet schools that do not have a magnet policy. So it's certainly something I think that's being discussed and may be developed, but I don't think there's any danger in us not having it covered at this very moment. Delta has been identified as moving into being a school next school year, and it will be that, and we've already established that the enrollment would be district-wide. That's been approved, I think we technically kind of approved that from the board lens, so that's, required.
So this is retired and there's no plan for any kind of replacement of this? This is just retired?
No.
Not at
That's
this
the
time.
recommendation, so we
Right.
would vote on it at a future meeting.
Correct.
Other questions regarding that? Okay.
Okay, the next policy, 210, medications. The district's original policy language was replaced with PSBA's recommended language, drafted and revised in order to reflect the Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines for Pennsylvania schools for the administration of medication and emergency care. So if you have any questions about that medication policy, that was revised as well. And student services assisted with that too.
Yeah, I was at the earlier meeting before I got to see, this is my first time seeing the revisions. I really appreciated some of the changes, and it reads much more clearly and straightforward, at least for me now.
I think so too.
Any other questions on the medication updated policy?
Okay, and last was 239, the foreign exchange students. And that was a minor change in this policy, again, anticipating the upcoming changes of structure with Delta. And it's noted with a strike-through in the second sentence under the authority section. Other than that, it was just minor. Okay?
Okay.
Great, thank you. And we have a Policy Development Committee meeting on May 20th at 1:30 here at PV.
Thanks for that
You're all
reminder.
welcome.
And then
Thank
we'll
you, guys.
see, being there's no major revisions requested, we'll see these policies come back at a future board meeting for
That's right. Yeah.
voting.
Yeah, if you notice anything between now and then, let us know. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Next on the agenda is an opportunity for board members to share updates on their committee initiatives. So we're going to start with Central Intermediate Unit. Jackie or Ann, do you have anything you'd like to share?
We are continuing with our search for an executive director. We're continuing on working on our building and trying to deal with rising costs on everything.
And meet this week.
And we have a meeting on Thursday.
Great. That's helpful, thanks. Ms. Gazdi, Education Foundation Liaison, Dan, anything you want to share? Oh, sorry.
No, just stand back here, shoot. Just the celebration on May 2nd at Center Hills Country Club. Still, you can get your tickets online.
Yeah, so the Maroon and Gray event where we'll be honoring a bunch of people. I have my tickets already. I have 2 tickets, but I think my spouse is not going to be able to make it. So if there's a board member that'd like to be my date, let me know. Next up, we have CTC. I will treat because I already bought the ticket. We have the CTC Local Advisory Committee. Carlene and Aaron?
Yes, we had a Perkins stakeholder meeting on April 10th, and basically Ben presented to us the approved and elected programs, both for State High, SCASD, and CPI, but I'll be only talking about SCASD. And these programs are those that are tied to the Perkins funding. And basically how we go about the budget and anticipating funding is that the federal government gives the state some money, and the state looks at all those vocational CTC programs, and they look at the number of students that we have. So some programs, like CPI, will get more money than we do, but it varies. So when we do our budget, we look at the level of funding for the previous year, and it's an estimation of about $80,000. So to use these funds, several internal committees run ideas that aligns with several indicators that Perkins has outlined. And these are performance indicators. And they are based on graduate cohorts, the Keystone in literature, algebra, biology, post-program placement, non-traditional concentrator, recognized credentials, and skill attainment. And so for those, we've already scored very high, and we exceeded the state average, except for the non-traditional concentrators. We're still lagging behind that. The state average is 15.96, and we're at 10.20. But these are the results from 2021, 22. So we're still lagging behind, so we may have achieved that then. And then we looked at the CLNA goals and community partnership, which is the comprehensive local needs assessment. And we had submitted e-grants, and we were approved for that. But we also had ongoing goals and recommendations that we are following. And these goals were increasing participation of ELLs, enhancing support for mental health and social-emotional development, reducing social barriers to access the CTCE programs, and strengthening our partnership with CareerLink, OVR, and industrial partners. And so then we did the proposed budget allocation, and we have some continued initiatives that we are doing, like the health professionals, the instructional coaching, and the senior career, and also curriculum support. And now we also added new initiatives, which are agricultural crop moisture testing kits, medical equipment for health programs. And what's important about that is that we're using these medical equipments for both the health professionals and the support therapy and exercise science. So we're getting both usage out of that, like the skeletal models, the oxygen concentrators. And then we also look at the vendors and the supply chain, because these tools include lifetime software licenses, and they only do that for the schools because these things are continuously updated, like the automotive things. So we were happy to hear about that. And there was a question raised about the manufacturing's origins and the potential for the tariffs, which was mentioned earlier today. And most of the vendors that we use are US based, but there are some of the components that may have to be imported. So that will vary on the prices of stuff. And that was basically it. And we have a community announcement. There's going to be a career fair on May 14 at C3 Sports from 1 to 4 p.m. hosted by PA Career Link. That's it.
Okay. So next up, we have facilities. Now, that's Peter and I. Unfortunately, I had a personal emergency that afternoon. I was unable to make it.
I couldn't go.
Gretchen, I think you went. Do you have
Yeah,
anything you
Aaron
wanna
and I
add?
were there.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for backing us up.
Do you want to report or?
Mike shared with us what most of the projects are for the summer. They always have a nice long list of things they have to update, some of which I think we just approved. We asked similar questions about, tariffs and materials costs. We've heard before that, at least for the Mount Nittany project, there doesn't seem to be a concern with that, but going forward, it'll be something to keep an eye on. We had a question about the roof at Park Forest Middle School because it had been done and is actually still under warranty, because certain areas seem to be leaking again. I don't know if it's this week or next week. Mike planned to have the company come out and kind of do a review on that, just to make sure that we can take care of that. So
He was on top of it.
He sure was. Yes.
That's great to hear.
Mike also, he said if anyone's interested in joining the committee, anybody who's here, if you're really into facilities, if that's your, stirs your drink, we could use you on the
That's a new
CAC
one
for,
for me.
yeah, exactly. We could use you for facilities. So there you go.
I'll just add just a couple things. One was the bridge and at the high school, and it's sinking, and they seem to have that totally 100% covered. There's zero safety issues, so students and parents and the public should know that there's absolutely no safety issue there, and it'll be fixed. The other thing I wanted to, Mike was talking about the district-wide facility master plan and the greenhouse gas inventory, and he talked about, how it has taken a while. And I did not know this, so I would share this out. Apparently, what slowed it down a lot was there was a software issue, and I can't remember the name of the software that there was an issue with, but it had something to do with compatibility. And he said that took like a month to try to work through. So that is also in progress, and we got an update on it, and that will be coming soon. But since I don't think we had talked about that before, I just thought I would share that there are reasons why these things are taking a while. So that's it. Thanks, Aaron.
That's helpful to know. Thanks. Yeah, we seem to always be plagued with software that doesn't like each other. It happens a lot. Next, we have finance. Deb and Jackie, I imagine you talked about the budget.
Yeah, we saw a very similar version of the presentation, though not as complete. So.
Yeah.
It was mostly complete. It was the same.
It was, because the CAC only meets quarterly, it reviewed some of the things that the board had seen over the last couple months, maybe previewed a little bit as of the date that we had the CAC that the board hadn't yet seen, but the board has now seen. So it's nothing new.
Gotcha.
And we are always looking for people to join the Finance CAC as well. So
That's true.
Agreed.
that floats your boat, if you like that analogy better.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna suggest your jam, but, yeah, so we do have several community advisory committees, and that's where we pull in experts in the public in those fields or people with special skills or interest, and we share information about what's going on in the district and give them the opportunity to share, things they know from their expertise or give advice on things that are happening in the community in their field. So we have athletics, facilities, finance, school health and safety, and technology. So school health and safety, they meet quarterly, so we're not due yet. And technology, no, because you guys had yes. Yeah. I think we need a list. I'm fresh out, so with that, I think we'll conclude board reports. And that also concludes our agenda for this evening. Looking ahead to future meetings, we have April 23rd, 2025. We're going to have a board conversation with the community. We do these 3 to 4 times a year. This event will be at 7 p.m. at Barnes & Noble on Benner Pike. May 5th, we have a Committee of the Whole regular board meeting. That'll be here at 7 p.m. in the Panorama Village Boardroom. May 19th, we have budget hearing, which is followed by our regular board meeting, again, starting at 7 p.m. And May 20th, as Michelle mentioned, is our next Policy Development Committee. That'll be at 1:30 in the afternoon here in the Panorama Village Boardroom. And with that, I'm going to declare our meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for everybody for their thoughts and their feelings, and I'm glad that you came tonight. Have a good evening.